So all three speakers are there. Well, good afternoon and welcome to this session. My apologies and embarrassment that that apart from the speakers and the chairs, that there is nobody else here for what actually is a very important session. But anyway, that's the way it works. So, given the fact that all three speakers are here, I think we can start. We are not, by conference standards, we are pretty much in time. We're only 5 minutes over time, so this is quite respectable. We are going to talk about neuropsychiatry, the past, present, and the future. So I think without further ado, we'll start the session. I'm sorry, because how much time? 1 hour for three speakers. So 15, yeah. So 15 minutes per speaker. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So yeah, okay, perfect. So can I invite Dr. Anant Prakash Saraf, who's an assistant professor of psychiatry from GMC Rajnandgaon. Please come.
Say in Chhattisgarh. A very good afternoon to respectable chairpersons and delegates. Today we are going to present a topic on neuropsychiatry. We will discuss about that. First of all, what is this concept of neuropsychiatry? It has been conceptualized as an interface between neurology and psychiatry, an intersecting field of inquiry for both brain and the mind. It has also been conceptualized as a field of study which encompasses those symptoms that lie in the gray zone between the two specialties of neurology and psychiatry. For example, it includes the impairment of attention, alertness, perception, memory, language, intelligence, all the higher cognitive functions. It has been defined as that aspect of psychiatry which, like neurology, seeks to advance the understanding of clinical problems through the neuroscience, the knowledge of brain structure and function. So it has been commented by many authors that this term has meant differently at different time and at different countries. So it has been defined differently on the basis of different assumptions or investigative techniques and approaches used, or on the basis of the type of patient it tries to cater. So what is the basic premise of neuropsychiatry? The foundational claim of neuropsychiatry is that mental disorders are disorders of brain. The underlying premise is that the neurological and psychiatric disorder share a common anatomical substrate and neuronal substrate. Advances in the understanding of neurological roots of mental disorder has shown that psychiatry is as much anchored in brain as its sister specialty neurology is. So in a way, scientific progress or rapid progress in neuroscience has essentially nullified the reasons which at the first place led to the separation of psychiatry and neurology. As a result of these advances in neuroscience, we are now in much better position for rapprochement between these two branches. So first of all, let's look into the past of the concept of neuropsychiatry. So this starts with the shared history of psychiatry and neurology. So starting from Hippocrates, who is the father of Greek medicine, which is a precursor to modern medicine, he described 4 kinds of mental disorders: delirium, psychosis, mania, phobias, and he attributed them to imbalance between the 4 humors. So essentially, he didn't make a distinction between physical and mental. Also, the forebearers of psychiatry, who have a long and illustrious history that predates the creation of separate fields of neurology and psychiatry. Historically, it was a single discipline that dominated the study of brain, particularly in the 19th century before the separation. This can be found through the fact that Dr. Ira Warren, who published a textbook of medicine in 1859, we can call it as a Harrison of that time, New Warren's household physician. It included a single chapter, diseases of brain and nerve, which included all the disorders which we now call as neurological or psychiatric. So in the late 19th or 20th century, neurology and psychiatry were seen closely related, and often housed in same academic department. So before the divergence began in the early part of 20th century, both had shared departments also. So how this concept of neuropsychiatry or the field of neuropsychiatry began? The anatomical studies done by Broca or Wernicke, they persuaded many scientists that brain is a seat of intellectual competence and logically a potential site for mental problems. In France, Georget emphasized emphasized on the organic etiology of mental disorders. Bell claimed that these disorders are actually aspects of same disease. But it was in Germany, in Berlin, Wilhelm Griesinger, who is also known as founding father of neuropsychiatry, who heralded the field of neuropsychiatry. He influenced many European neuropsychiatrists, including Mayer, Meinert, Leipman, Pick, Oppenheim, Charcot, Korsakoff, Monaco, Babinski, Freud, Jackson, Bleuler, Kraepelin, Bonhoeffer, Alzheimer. We all have heard all these names. All these are big names in both psychiatry and neurology. These were essentially neuropsychiatrists, and these people researched in neuropsychiatry before the branches became split. On the other side of Atlantic, in USA, Dr. Benjamin Rush, who is known as father of American psychiatry, also claimed that mental illnesses are caused by same causes and subject to same laws as other diseases of human body. It's worthwhile to mention some of the Greisinger's observation, because these are very much foresighted. He claimed that brain is a seat of mental discord. He also said that not all cerebral diseases need to be manifested as mental disorders. We all know that. Psychiatry must be a medical discipline instead of being poetic or some moralistic exercise. He also made some very foresighted observation regarding sensation, perception, memory, higher mental functions. At that time, more than 170 years ago, he made an observation that diagnosis of the mental illness should be based upon the presence of multiple factors and historical development of symptoms instead of single symptom. So how these two branches, which started with a common past, got separated? The separation started when neuropsychiatrists were unable to localize the brain lesion. This led to much of disappointment. With the rise of psychodynamics, in the beginning of 20th century with Sigmund Freud, the interest between psychiatric disorder and brain was gradually abandoned, and this split became more explicit after World War II. Neurology laid claim to those disorders which had demonstrable neuropathologic changes and established etiology, while psychiatry started pursuing those disorders in which there was no visible pathology. So this is famously known as the organic versus functional divide, which still persists to this date. The separation was not only ideological, the separation was also geographical. In 19th century, neurology was mainly practiced in inner city hospitals, while psychiatry was restricted to sanatoriums and asylums, which were situated in isolated area, as we still know that dedicated mental health institutes to this day in our country are situated quite outside the city. So this led to a geographical separation also. The precursor of the Royal College of Psychiatrists was known as Association of Medical Officers of Asylums and Hospital for Insane. So as we can see, they didn't even call themselves psychiatrists. They used to call them medical officers of the asylum. This can be pointed in a fact that in annual meeting of asylum superintendents in 1894, Professor Michel, who is a neurologist, strongly criticized psychiatrists, saying that where are your scientific reports? You live alone, uncriticized, unquestioned, out of healthy conflict, which keep neurologists up to the mark. So this was quite a strong criticism against psychiatrists. Academic separation was also there. The Archives of Neurology and Psychiatry, which was first published in 1919, was separated into two journals in 1959, Archives of Neurology and Archives of General Psychiatry, which goes by the name of JAMA Psychiatry nowadays. The schism between neurology and psychiatry was further codified by training programs. So the various board examinations and other board certification examination eventually got separated. Dr. Francis Braceland, who is former secretary and president of American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology, said that to get neurologists and psychiatrists of that period to sit down together without police presence was itself an accomplishment. So we can see that how much was the hostility between the two at that time. And in 1965, the Residency Review Committee of Psychiatry and Neurology, they deleted the mandatory psychiatric posting for neurology resident, which even in our country, there is no mandatory psychiatric posting for neurology residents. But it is not like that separation was universal. Few people resisted that. Emil Kraepelin, who is a contemporary of Freud, and it's very interesting to know that both were born in same year, 1856. He advocated a biological and genetic basis for disorders, and all his students, among them was Alzheimer. These were trained in neuropsychiatry and qualified as and psychiatrists, and were working in psychiatric institutes, psychiatric hospitals. They continued their hope to discover the biological basis of psychiatric disorders by histopathological methods, and tried to correlate neuropathological lesions with clinical syndrome. Even in United Kingdom, Sir Charles Simmons, who is known as Doyen of British neurologists, tried to oppose the separation, but his opinion was rejected. A small cadre of biological psychiatrists, although we call them as biological psychiatrists now, but they continued to their pursuit of understanding mental disorder on the basis of neurobiology. It was not like that only psychiatrists opposed it. Famous neurologist James Jackson Putnam, he himself opposed it. He was at the chair at the Harvard, and he heralded that interdisciplinary cooperation between psychiatrists, psychologists, and neurologists. So what was the outcome of this separation? Psychiatry lost many of the domains, many of the disorders which were previously under the domain of psychiatry. One of it was Parkinson, which was previously largely considered psychiatric disorders until physicians found specific treatments for it and neuropathological basis for it. Generalized paralysis of insane, nowadays we rarely see this. It was caused by tertiary syphilis, and previously was one of the main cause of institution in mental hospitals, but nowadays it is treated by physicians. Alzheimer's disease, it's very interesting to know that the first case report given by Alzheimer was in a patient which the lady from August D actually showed psychiatric symptoms and presented with psychiatric symptoms and died at a very early age in her 50s. But as a neuropathological basis was found, neurologists started treating it. This same case with sleep disorder, even epilepsy, fell under the purview of psychiatrists until neurologists started treating epilepsy. There are few relics of this shared past also, like the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology still to date exists as a single board, although the functioning for psychiatrists and neurologists is different. Until late 1950s, there was single department at Harvard. At Tulane University, that department never got separated. So we can see that there has been shifting paradigms in the field of psychiatry or neuropsychiatry. We can say that in the later half of 19th century, the paradigm shifted from the concept that mental disorders are caused by sins or of previous birth or some other magico-religious foundations, and human approach was given by Philip Pinel. In the first half of 20th century, Sigmund Freud set out to find a structural basis of illness, but even though he was trained as a neurologist, after 8 years of trying, he gradually adopted psychoanalysis. In 1950s, the paradigm again started shifting with the discovery of effective pharmacotherapy. In 1960s, after landmark studies, genetic inheritance, it was firmly established that psychiatric disorders have biological origin. And 1980s, this was shown in when the DSM, the third edition, shifted their perspective from psychodynamic to medical model. And 1990 to 1999 was called as a decade of brain, and much of the advancement in neuroscience took place during this decade. Now I'll hand over the mic to Dr. Deeptadi for presenting the present scenario regarding neuropsychiatry.
Good afternoon, respectable chairpersons and other audiences. So Anant has already discussed why there is no neurologist attending this seminar, and this conference and why there is so little audience in this hall. So, but we have reasons to be optimistic. So I will discuss about that only. So advent of neuroleptics as well as later on SSRIs, other psychopharmacological use in psychiatry actually established the firm base of psychiatry in biology. There is nothing to doubt about that. So in 1980s, attitudes once again began to leaning towards linkage of these two disciplines. One of the reasons being these neuroleptics and other psychopharmacological inventions. English-speaking countries were the flag bearers. First association of neuropsychiatry was established in Britain. It's British Neuropsychiatric Association in 1987, followed by America in 1989. So one is psychopharmacology, another is development of neuroscience. So within the last three decades, 2 to 3 decades, now we have the evidence, we have the physiology of memory. We can explain how memory works, memory function work. We know how these complex cognitions, other cognitions work. So that also established that most of the disorder of those cognitions are also into the brain. So that is another factor that is there. And psychiatry has returned into the experimental medicine and evidence-based scientific practice. So like now physiology I have already discussed. So how do biological process of brain gives rise to mental events? That is the physiology part of it. And how do environmental factors modulate the biological structure of the brain? So that is the pathological part of it. And next is how can these forces be harnessed to promote mental health and recovery from the brain injury. So that is the management part of it, how to use those biological knowledge of psychiatry into the management. So reapproachment of these two new fields has begun. I have already mentioned about British Neuropsychiatric Association and American Neuropsychiatric Association. Apart from that, United Council of Neurological Specialties in USA accorded recognition of the neurological subspecialty, which is called neuropsychiatry and behavioral neurology, with the certification examinations commencing in 2006. And both the disciplines, neurologist and psychiatrist, can apply for this. So neuropsychiatry can work as a melting pot for these two specialties. And it will give a very firm framework for psychiatry, neurophysiology and neuropathological framework, where that dialectical and subtextual understanding can be made. So if we want to make a case for neuropsychiatry, first for neuropsychiatry would be, we have already discussed that neuroscience and pharmacological development already told us that psychiatry is as much anchored in the brain as neurology is. And scientific progress has essentially nullified the reasons that lead to the separation. Distinction between neurology and psychiatry may held some of the public and even professionals, especially in other field other than psychiatry. It can cause stigma to them also. And so if we neurologize psychiatry, it can help to ameliorate that stigmatization. Apart from that, as you all know, last word in our clinical practice is patient. So what is happening is that many of the neuropsychiatric disorders are falling into this both gap between neurology and psychiatry. Nobody is equipped enough to deal with those patients. So they are not getting care for any of those specialties. And collaboration is not there, as Anand already told. There is significant amount of schism between them. So this neuropsychiatry can work on that part also. And realliance of these two specialties will be best serve the patient. Another important part is this vaults of guild-based theoretical and clinical schism between psychiatry and neurology. So apart from, rather than fighting between who belongs to whom, which case belongs to whom, if they can come together, or if some course can be there where they are equipped to deal with those patients, both can see those patients and both can take others' opinion. So dichotomies, as we all know, is very prevalent in psychiatry: mind versus brain, mental versus physical, functional versus organic, psychological versus biological, subjective versus objective, nature versus nurture, qualitative versus quantitative. These are everywhere in psychiatry. So there are some significant problem with these dichotomies. One of this problem is this: it can cause some confusion. Like if some psychiatric disorder is not belonging to brain, then where it is? And it can lead to stigmatization, it can lead to superstition. So that confusion is, we need to deal with that part. And it promotes the condensation of complex brain disorder into simplistic categorization. Like either it's present or absent, rather than looking at in continuum. So that is, do we think that these are false dichotomies? Maybe not entirely, but we need to think about it. And as you can see, according to Kindler in 2005 article, he has mentioned it is the time for the field of psychiatry to declare that this Cartesian substance dualism is false. Rejection of Cartesian dualism logically leads to the conclusion that all psychiatric disorders are biological. So what is the alternative? If we just negate this dualism, then what is the alternative? Alternative is accept explanatory pluralism. So same phenomena we can describe from different aspects. It need not be that is truth and this is false. So it also will promote bidirectionality of the understanding. So purpose of neuropsychiatry first is it aims to overcome the separation that we have already discussed, bridge the conventional boundaries imposed between mind and matter, between intention and function, and between guild-based clinical consideration of the professional discipline of neurology and psychiatry. And also another important field which is arising is social neurology. So that is how we can biologically define social behaviors. That is also coming into play in modern era. And neurology, psychiatry can take that and we can triangulate these three fields and build our conception, and we can use that to give proper management to our patients. Advent of neuropsychiatry, main neurology is already we have discussed, psychiatric disorder and amyloid stigmatization. Scope, now which are the patients that will be treated by neuropsychiatry? Again, there is a dualism. One is minimal approach, another is maximal approach. So minimal approach is just the borderline cases, like psychiatric complication of neurological disorder, and like behavioral problems with Parkinsonism, or drug-related problems with Parkinsonism, or multiple sclerosis, psychiatric disorders related to multiple sclerosis, or psychiatric complication with psychiatric disorder with neurological complications. That is also there. Maximal approach is to take anything that is occurring above foramen magnum. So we would think that we'll start from minimal approach. As we'll grow, as the field will grow, it can gradually go towards maximal approach. Thank you.
So taking into what Dr. Ananth and Dr. Diptadi had spoken regarding the history of the realm of neuropsychiatry and what we practice nowadays, my focus would be on the future of neuropsychiatry. Where can we go? Where can we land up next? So much of the discussions can be a mere overlap with Dr. Diptadi had spoken. because what we would be proposing standing from here is that better we give a separate course called neuropsychiatry. Many of us practice with a degree like Dr. This, practicing neuropsychiatrist, but we are indeed treated in psychiatry, not neurology. There is nothing called neuropsychiatry. So where is the territorial overlap? When can we use the term neuropsychiatry? So what options can we have? Taking to what Dr. Ananth had spoken, Dr. Grisinger gave the concepts, 8 to 10 concepts, why psychiatric conditions stem out from proper biological brain basis, and what Dr. Dipta had spoken about merging. So options is that we can combine both the disciplines into an overlap, into a larger curriculum. But issue would be that it would be a very vast amount of literature, very vast amount of topics that ultimately we'll be dealing with. We know what is the volume of CTP that we have, OTP that we have, and the books of neurology we have. So if we bring all together in a gamut of neuropsychiatry, combining everything, it is a huge, vast hodgepodge of information that we get. Another approach could be that if you can take some tits and bits in piecemeals from psychiatry, piecemeals from neurology, we can combine them into a whole, and we can study as a separate field called neuropsychiatry. The problems can lie in that it can be a very truncated, very small view of the overall subject. So if I take Parkinsonism into neuropsychiatry, what will happen to other brain conditions or the other comorbidities that happens with Parkinsonism, like this. Another can be is that, like, if one discipline A is subsumed under discipline B, like psychiatry under neurology or neurology under psychiatry, issue is that there can be risk of engulfing. Like we normally have this forethought that whether neurologists are ruining our practice or not, jokes apart. So these things can happen, whether it can be an overlap, whether one can, it is totally brain-centered or a mind-centered if one is overlapping the others. Why not go for a separate unified branch like neuropsychiatry? Let's go for something like encephiatrics, like encephalon, the brain, above the foramen magnum, where Dr. Dipta had spoken. So anything related to encephalon, let's take into a separate division, what Pies in 2015 had opined. And we can lead to some bridging terms and transformative language that can better define the structure. So, for example, like we merge the two disciplines, neurology and psychiatry. So what can happen? First of all is that the nature and our patients, they don't know that I am suffering, I am hearing voices, I am suspecting that people are against me, the whole village is against me, NASA is spying against me, whether I should go to where? They land up to a clinician. So they don't know they don't understand the dichotomization. They see that everything is a problem, might be a problem of the brain. They can enter a neurologist's chamber. And it can so happen that there are some borders between neurology and psychiatry, the blind spots, in which it happens that sometimes the neurologist takes care of it, the psychiatrist gives the care, and the patient tries to shuttle between the two practitioners. You take or you take, give it to me or give it to me, something like this. So the patient shuttles between the two, receiving disjointed care that can be quite erroneous. Under the umbrella of clinical neuroscience, the neurologist can speak of both neuropsychiatrists can speak of a common language under the term of neuroscience or neuropsychiatry, in which it can be beneficial to understand the whole realm of neuropsychiatry, can be beneficial ultimately to the patients for whom we are ultimately planning such things. Issue is that conditions like NMDA receptor encephalitis, there are multiple case reports nowadays, conditions which start with dissociative disorders might be, or anxiety spectrum disorders, or can enter into the realm of mood disorders or frank psychosis. But on brain imaging, on going for a CSF tap, we go that there are some anti-NMDA receptor antibodies in the brain. So where from this particular will go, whether it will be treated, the condition we found in the brain, but the symptoms are totally of psychiatric manifestation. Who will treat this thing? So better we go for an unified subject which can treat this type of complex conditions. So in relation to this, to merge the two factors, there are some points which talks against merging the two factors. Like, no, we shouldn't merge neurology and psychiatry. Like neurologists will tell you, we do with hardcore biochemical, neuroanatomical things that can be well delineated. It is a one-to-one thing. For example, I have a paralysis in this hand. It's definitely the contralateral hemisphere. Something. I have a paralysis for the whole left half. Something is there in the contralateral, internal capsule, for example. There is one-to-one relation for everything. We don't have. We cannot tell till now, there are more than thousands of genes that try to understand schizophrenia. We don't know the neurology, the biology, or the social things come into play. So still we are in a doubtful condition. So psychiatry is dialectical and neurology is more of relational, some people propose. And they are psychiatry and neurology are of two different poles. One deal with functional aspects, query functional aspects, though we suppose that psychiatry is nothing functional. Even dissociative disorders tend to some neurological changes in the brain. Some psychological, conscious versus unconscious, something that is manifested, something that is latent. And the fourth point I've already told, like it's one-to-one. There is a stoppage of blood flow in one particular artery. This particular area of the brain is not getting a blood supply. So neurologists can argue, this is one-to-one. We psychiatrists cannot tell. There is something in the thalamus because of which sensory getting is at problem and persons hallucinate. So the first point was to merge the two disciplines. But there are some concerns, many eyebrows raised because of this. Many academic and political powers can come into play, and like whether one is swallowing the other. It will be a fight. As what Dr. Anand spoke in the first few slides, that at some point in the early 19th century, there was not a single time in which neurologists and psychiatrists could come under the same roof without a policeman in the audience, something like this. And we psychiatrists can fear that if we merge the two, we might be engulfed. Neurology can make its small ramifications within psychiatry. Our discipline is in danger. I doubt whether neurologists will have the same doubt regarding the same thing. And also, like the vast amount of knowledge that neuropsychiatry will serve, will it be palatable enough? Will it be digestible enough? This particular thing is important. Important is that, like, whether, like, some authors concern that with a proper narrow biological focus on psychiatry, whether psychiatry will ultimately cut its social aspects and psychological aspects that ultimately also play some role, the nature versus nurture, something into the origin of disorders. Like we have, for example, 40% schizophrenia can be etiologically can be caused by genetic factors. So what about the 60%? Whether if you go for only that 40%, we are totally delineating, not taking into play the 60% role of environment into the causation of schizophrenia, something like that. These are the concerns that can happen if you merge the two disciplines. So why not we create a subspecialty, the discipline of neuropsychiatry. There are different expertises with a vast different demands placed on both them. Will it be better if we can combine these two important clinical disciplines of medicine? Psychiatry, we know, is based upon rich history taking, the developmental perspective. We start history from the birth. Any patient, even for schizophrenia, we sometimes, like what is a refrigerator mother? Sometimes we look for double-blind concepts going on in the family or not. We sometimes go as early as the family history, what went. But neurologist, a person coming with a motor neuron disease or a hemiparesis, we seldom ask, anything happened in your family? We do ask, but in psychiatry, we go into the depths. A rational approach, interviewing skills, understanding multiple causations to cause these particular issues. And so these are the common dictums, common discussions that can go on. While neurology can practice, we look for proper examinations. If you get a Babinski positive, a plantar positive, definitely is an upper motor neuron type of lesion. Fixed. There is nothing, no second thought. So psychiatry, we are there to give a second thought. And like if we amalgamate, there is a difference between amalgamation of the two subjects and a rapprochement. If we amalgamate, the dilution or engulfing of one discipline. Rapprochement, a sense of understanding with the two disciplines, can be a better approach to give a healthy merging of the two disciplines into neuropsychiatry. So important is that, like Dr. Diptadi had spoken regarding to neurologize psychiatric illnesses, can reduce stigma. Is it some degree of pessimism that we carry? I personally feel that given a particular thought, psychiatric diseases shouldn't have stigma. If a branch of neuropsychiatry comes into play, this stigma can be totally dealt with. Because now people will have, okay, I have a neuropsychiatric condition that has got a biological basis of the brain. And there are many conditions which neurologists treat. They treat psychological comorbidities at times with very suboptimal dose of medications. For example, we see many patients being treated with escitalopram 2.5 milligram, thinking that it will do some havoc. But when this patient gets referred to us, we know where is the problem that is going on. So whether the proper interdisciplinary thing is at problem or not. Sometimes we also think that this also can be managed by us. For example, giving half of Syndopa to a patient of Parkinson and psychosis, ultimately the patient landing up into having visual hallucinations. So whether this is important or not, whether something would be, merging would be important for this or not. Neurologists also get complaints of vague somatic symptoms like jhin of multiple body. This part of India has many complaints, psychosomatic symptoms, something gas. There is a term in Bengal and parts of Odisha like I have gas and that is the source of all the problems that I have. It moves up to the brain causing this, it moves downwards causing this. So they dwindle between multiple physicians and they ultimately can land into psychiatrists or neurologists. So neurologists I don't think they're properly trained in this particular disciplines. So whether it is a psychosomatic illness they know or not, whether they can refer to us or not, whether we are properly dealt in handling somatoform disorders or not. So these are the points that can help. So lastly, we can speak that neuropsychiatry, whether we deal with an approach or it is a territorial approach. For example, this particular slide would be quite helpful. In psychiatry, we deal with thought, perception, we deal with mood, affect, all of FISH, textbook of psychopathology. While neurology deals with the motor and the sensory systems. Tactile stimulation, 2-point vibration, temperature sensation, pain. Neuropsychiatry, on the other hand, can take a piecemeal of both of them, some degree of rapprochement, and they can deal with conditions like attention, concentration, some part of the brain like the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex related to this part of the cognitions, attention, concentration, working memory, the long-term memories, language and speech, intelligence. We psychiatrists deal in details, even neurologists also deal in details. So whether they can be a territorial approach, neuropsychiatry can serve this group of disorders. So this is a point to discuss on. So with this, we can propose that why not we come with a curriculum of neuropsychiatry, can be important, in which we can have focal neurobehavioral conditions like aphasias, apraxias, agnosias, executive dysfunction, the orbitofrontal syndrome, dorsolateral prefrontal cortex syndrome. We can have, whether it is a major neuropsychiatric sequelae syndromes like the dementias, the delirium, whether we can put this group of disorders under neuropsychiatry or not, quite thoughtful. We can easily put under the domain of neuropsychiatry. Neurological conditions with cognitive emotional features like Parkinsonism having comorbid depression, comorbid psychosis, quite disturbing to treat. Parkinson's and comorbid psychosis in comorbid Parkinson disease, multiple sclerosis, traumatic brain injury and concomitant post-trauma sequelae, dementias, the behavioral and psychological symptoms of dementia, who can treat, or the full dementia, who can treat. So this can be put in the curriculum of neuropsychiatry. And comorbid conditions like Down syndrome, Alzheimer's, OCD, Huntington's, Tourette's, etc. Even Wilson's disease can also fall in this realm of practice. So we can go like some topics of community medicine. Neuropsychiatry can start with a preventive approach, like prenatal counseling, telling mothers not to take alcohol, can have fetal alcohol syndrome, some preventive approach. Early detection of syndromes like a person having a hemorrhagic stroke, now lying on the hospital bed with aphasia, there is high chance of going for depression, whether we can detect it early and treat it at the early primordial state. Focused assessment, a person who has become overtly aggressive, whether we can target that particular thing using proper pharmacological approaches. Specific localization using the brain chemistry, the neuroanatomical and neurophysiology to finding the causative focus and then to treat. And multiple therapeutic modalities to enable the patient to adapt to these deficits that are otherwise not reversible. So this is was given by Pais et al. Like encephalography, as in the initial 1 or 2 slides I was speaking about, anything dealing with the encephalon or the brain, can it be a separate good term? Neurology will not fight psychoneurology or neuropsychiatry. People can again come and fight. So whether we can have encephalography. It can consider 2 conditions like encephalitis and encephalosis, in which schizophrenia, we can have intractable forms of disease, anxiety spectrum disorders, some brain lesions which can be detectable by proper microscopic analysis. And encephalosis, the dementia, the delirium, this can be dealt with under the broad heading of this I think there is a problem with the slide. The full thing has not come. So what to expect from future? Like the clinical neuroscience, if it is better or not better to amalgamate the two things. There are advanced neuroimaging studies, genetic analysis, and biological markers for disease diagnosis, monitoring, treatment, and prognostication. Whether coming to the recent advances in computational techniques, whether this can have an overbearing into the development of this branch of medicine. And lastly, we would try to say that the conflict between the two disciplines would go on. So there are issues against merging, there are issues for merging, whether writing the term neuropsychiatry, MD neuropsychiatry is logical or not. The question of ethicality is something remote. Whether it is better that something is started as a separate course, like neurology can have a 1 to 2 months. Currently, I think it is 1 month of psychiatry posting. If it is 3 months of psychiatry posting, for them to know the psychiatric basis of disease. For psychiatrists, not only 1 month, something like a 3 months posting of neurology, in which we can understand what is the motor neuron disease, what is multiple sclerosis, what are the other aspects of Parkinsonism, what is Parkinson plus syndrome, and other these conditions can be dealt with. To sum up, there are two specialties can be subsumed under the umbrella term of neuroscience, confirming that psychiatry is a clinical neuroscience. Was given by the term was this line was from Verghese et al. In 2016 in Indian Journal of Psychiatry. Also, like neuropsychiatry and behavioral neurology can be developed as a subspecialty with collaboration from both psychiatry and neurology. As the skill-based shifts and developments in neuroscience redefine the landscape of diagnostic methods, the neuropsychiatric approach will change and will constantly evolve and will try to reinvent itself. So our recommendations, I just preponed speaking this, to increase compulsory rotation in the Department of Neurology for psychiatry PG students, and the same for the other also. Separate paper section in the MD DNB section on neuropsychiatry. Also, like joint conferences, like not ANSIPS, and not like ANSIPS would be there. There can be a national conference on neurology, but something like with psychiatry and neurology. And obviously, PDF and DM course on neuropsychiatry. We have geriatric psychiatry, we have child psychiatry, addiction medicine. Why not neuropsychiatry? Quite thoughtful. And obviously, research orientedness is also important. We can have an Indian Neuropsychiatric Association and a journal dedicated to neuropsychiatry. All are welcome. Psychiatry, neurology should be of something related to clinical neuroscience. So with this, we end the symposium. These are the references. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nath. Yeah. I think I should like to thank all the delegates who have finally landed up for making this session more worthwhile. Regarding your question, neurologists are interfering with our practice. They take about 30 to 40% of our cases. The discussion, any questions, comments on this particular issue? Please. Come.
So it was a well detailed discussed, elaborate presentation regarding the merger concepts and the other historical aspects regarding the branch of psychiatry and neurology and the neuropsychiatric concepts. So my question is that, right from the beginning, when this dichotomous thing happened, right from the defining what are psychiatric disorders and what are neurological disorders, maybe probably initially all were thought in terms of psychiatry. Even the example that you told, Parkinson's disease, initially it was thought as a psychiatric disorder, but later when a basis in etiology was found, then it was shifted to neurology, right? So my question is, so psychiatry, since we don't know the underlying etiology mechanisms, that is why it's like we just kept it aside, because I always feel psychiatry is always a neurological problem. It arises from the brain only. Since we don't really know the detailed aspects of how it's because the disorder presentation is quite complex in psychiatry. It involves cognitive, emotional, social aspects. Many etiological things are done. So since the etiology is being varied and the presentation is also such varied presentation, that is why maybe it's kept as a psychiatry as a separate field. But if you still more look into the more details, everything starts from the brain only. So my personal opinion would be, already the dichotomous thing is there, and neurologists very clear in certain things. Okay, this will refer to psychiatrist only, and psychiatrists we also very clear. Okay, this will refer to neurology only. Since this is already there, is it necessarily need to have a specialty of neuropsychiatry? So that will be the.
I'll answer that question. As you said that the whole thing started with this, the split started with on the basis of etiology, that we found etiology of some disorder related with brain, and we didn't find the neuropathological basis of some disorders related with brain. The split began there. But right now we have such a vast amount of knowledge regarding brain, mind, everything. Right now the split which persists is not on the basis of etiology. It's on the basis of division of labor, as we shown in the slide. So there are main 7 functions of brain: mood, affect, and behavior. There's higher cognition and motor, sensory, and coordination. Neurologists are dealing with that, and we are dealing with mood, thought, affect, and behavior. And neuropsychiatry can be in the middle zone, which deals with the higher cognitive functions and help with both psychiatry and neurology when there's some overlap between the two specialities. So that's what was the purpose of the presentation. There can be many options to do that. It can be done by either combining, so it will create a humongous field that will be difficult to manage. There will be fights, there will be political rivalry, and another thing can be to take a minimal approach, that only the middle zone. That will truncate most of the good things in both psychiatry and neurology. The objectivity of neurology, it will be truncated. The subjectivity of psychiatry, where we approach everything in a different manner, that will also be truncated. So it's better, like we proposed it, it's better to come together, collaborate, and find a common ground where both psychiatrists and neurologists can come together and learn the skill sets of each other and help these patients. So this was what was proposed. Thank you.
So, 2-3 comments. Firstly, very nice presentation, very well conceptualized, and very well sort of constructed. The 2-3 questions, I mean, let me just take the chairperson's prerogative, and then of course we have time, so we'll open it up to the audience. So in the original Harvard group, the inter-sectoral group
Yes.
included neurologists, psychiatrists, psychologists, and philosophers. Where do you see the place for this? And in continuity, so the reason for the split is, in a sense, thinking small. And the solution to all, and not just in clinical practice, in life, the solution is thinking big. And if the solution is thinking big, or thinking flexibly, or thinking in larger terms, then why are we limiting ourselves to just conversations between psychiatry and neurology? I mean, this in itself is so limiting. Why are we not talking about conversations between psychiatry and sociology, or psychiatry and literature, or psychiatry and clinical psychology, which actually doesn't really happen? So, which is not to diminish in any way the necessity of the conversation with neurology, but I think multi-directionally, should we not be having so many more conversations, because ultimately the smaller our the ambit of our thought is, the more limited it will be. So, as a corollary, would creating smaller constituencies be wise or unwise? I mean, because to my mind, it seems to be the opposite seems to be the option. The larger you think, the larger the constituency you create.
Sir, we agree to that. The time is for proliferation, because the more we know about these other branches of humanities, so that has also got its own importance. Yes, sir. Agree, sir. Agree.
The thing is that, sir, I don't know, humans are illogical in that way, because if you see, we are living in a era of super speciality. Neurology didn't stop there. They have also branched themselves, movement disorder specialist, epilepsy specialist. Psychiatrists also didn't stop there. They have branched themselves, addiction specialist.
So, the bottom line is that either we continue the argument of absurdity, saying that the world is going mad, so let us go mad, or we say that, look, we need to step back, and where is sanity in times of madness? And then we have to decide on the path. We can't be saying both things.
Exactly. So that is an issue everywhere, not only in the field of medicine, I think. This is because compartmentalization of those things. So it has multifold adversities. In many of the researches, someone sequencing researches, one person goes to the laboratory and just does the same work day in and day out. He or she doesn't know what gene he is sequencing, what is the inference of that. So it's very difficult for him to invest himself or herself into that work, because he doesn't know what is the product of it. So that is also happening.
So, which is where my cognitive dissonance is coming from.
Yeah, exactly, sir.
Because what you're saying is mutually contradictory things, no? What you're saying is that we need a broader, a larger, multi-layered understanding of things. It is an argument against dichotomous thinking, it's an argument against binary thinking, it's an argument against limitations of thinking, which intrinsically in all fields of life, not just clinical medicine, all fields of life, whether it is social, whether it is political, whether it is, the way that we live our lives, we would all intuitively, instinctively agree with you completely. On the other hand, if we are saying that to beat this, we are going to create smaller constituencies, that now we need, again, what NIMHANS is doing, rehabilitation ka alag, neuropsychiatry ka alag.
Exactly, sir.
This seems to me
We are going backward.
counter logic. No?
Yeah.
So maybe we need to go forward, we need to step back a little bit. I'm sorry.
True, sir. No, sir.
I'm sorry for being...
No, we are...
But this is something that I actually feel very strongly about.
Sir, we agree to that in principle, and also in our presentation we tried to present different perspectives for that also. But in conclusion, we are very new to the field of psychiatry. In conclusion, we have concluded that we can divide and conquer. So that was one of our slides. So if we divide our work, there should be collaboration, there should be crosstalk, and there should be one branch we can start like that. So that was our take on that. Thank you.
See, it can be viewed a little differently also. See, at least at some point, this division of neurology and psychiatry was clean. in the sense the motor problem, sensory problem, neurologist, and psychosis with psychiatrist. It was clean in 60s and 70s. Okay, it is because of division of labor. What is really needed is the conceptual understanding and integration. At one level, we will be going into refined way like neuropsychiatry and child psychiatry and addiction psychiatry, and we will be going further down. But at the same time, at the top level, conceptually, we have to integrate. Even now, the division of labor with current experience and knowledge, neurology can continue to exist in the same form. Psychiatry can exist in the same form. But conceptually, we need to understand the field is much wider. Not only neuroscience, and it encompasses the field of medicine, biology, and whatnot, including animals, plants, and everything can be, and as well as, there has to be a upward and downward integration.
Yes,
That
sir.
is we need a broader perspective.
Yes, sir.
Still, the division of labor will continue. Still, a stroke patient will be better managed by a neurologist because of the accumulated experience and the body of knowledge. A neurotic patient better cared by a psychiatrist. But we still know the limitations and the scope.
Yes, sir.
The bottom line is you got to know your limitations. That's what the problem comes up there, when you don't know your limitations. Anything, Alok? Any more questions or comments? Okay, I'd like to wind up. Thank you very much, speakers, for a very nice talk. And thank you, delegates, for coming finally. At least people have come now.
सेशन का रेडी हो गया क्या? नहीं दिया ना, सेशन नहीं दिया डायरेक्ट नहीं आनंद की अभी ये सब
इस सेशन में ही होगा ना?